Hi, in this video we'll be looking at the security provided in RapidFTR. So let's first look at how we can access RapidFTR. The first bit is through your phone via the Android application. The second bit is through your browser through the web application. The next one is via third-party application through the API. And then the last one is through another RapidFTR server via the server-to-server sync. Now, the Android app, the web app, and the API share the same type of security. However, the RapidFTR servers have their own different security that's separate from the first three, but I'll explain that as we go. So let's first look at the user management layer that covers the Android app, web app, and API. So to quickly explain at a very high level, we have a user, and this user pretty much gets a username and password to access the web app, the Android app, the web app, and the API. So each user will then have a set of roles, and within those roles, they will have one or more permissions. So essentially, the permissions will grant a user access to different functionality within RapidFTR. This is not so visible within the Android app and the API. However, in the web application, this is extremely visible. So depending on what levels of access your administrator gives you, you won't be able to access some functionality within RapidFTR. So that's a very high level of the user management module. Let's have a look at what security is provided via the Android application. So the basics, you get a username and password given to you ideally by your local RapidFTR administrator, and this is what you'll use to access the RapidFTR app. The next bit is, as much as we have export within the web application, there is no export in the Android application, principally because you're on a mobile device, and excuse the pun, the mobile device is extremely mobile. Therefore, it's important to make it as hard as possible for a person with ill intentions to extract data from the Android app in the mobile device. The next bit is the data is encrypted. So what this means is there is no other application within the phone that can access the RapidFTR data. So this is inclusive of all the photos, the audio, as well as the text records that are stored in the Android application. And this is again another way of denying someone with ill intentions access to the data. And of course, always the data is synced over a secure connection, either via the internet or via a local network. And then the next bit is something I'll explain a little more, which is self-sign-up users can only access their own data. So let me just take a few steps back. So on the Android application on the phone, you can either, to access it and get a username and password, there's one of two ways. The first one is you can go to your local administrator, who will then create an account for you via the web application and then give you your username and password, which you will then use to access the Android application as well as the web application. And if that is the case, you will then be referred to as a verified user. So, different case. You have no access to your administrator, but you have your phone and you have the RapidFTR Android application on your phone, and you need to start registering children. So what you can then do is open up the Android application, create your own account, and then start registering children, and then you can even sync data across to a server if you do know the URL. However, in this case, you're then referred to as an unverified user. So in this case, when I talk of self-sign-up users, I'm talking of unverified users. So let's just look a little deep into this. Let's assume I have a little cloud server here. Excuse my very pathetic drawing. So when a verified user syncs their data over to a cloud server here, they always get back more records created by other users and also changes to their own records. But if it's an unverified user, they will send across their own records, but only get back changes to their own records. So they will not be getting back records created by any other user. And this is a safeguard in case the unverified user is someone with ill intention and somehow they knew the URL to the server. So that covers the basics of the Android app security. Let's move on to the web application. So same as the Android application, we have a username and password provided to you by your administrator. And just as a note, there is no self sign up on the web application. You need to get a username and password from your administrator. This is only accessed via SSL over the web or over your network. And then, as opposed to the Android application, we do have export. However, it is secure export. So whenever you export data out of the web application, it will always come with a password. So this ensures that if it's out of RapidFTR, at the very least there is some layer of security in case someone else with ill intentions tries to access that data. And then the next bit is standard in most web applications across the web. Once you're idle on the web page for a while, you'll get a message asking you whether you still want to work, and then if not, if you don't respond to that message, then you're automatically logged out. This again just prevents somebody from using the application without your knowledge. And then what I mentioned a little earlier about the user management layer, so permissions. It is only in the web application where you see the permissions at work. I mean, if you don't have administrator access, you won't necessarily notice this, but permissions command a lot of the functionality within the web application. So depending on what layer of permissions you have, you won't be able to access different parts of the web application. Let's take export, for example. So each export within the web application has its own permission. So if you want to export to PDF, you need to get the respective permission to export to PDF. If you want to export to CSV, you need to get the respective permission to export to CSV. Right, so let's move on to the API security. This is pretty simplistic. Same username and password, same access via secure connection. And the next bit is, I would say, more of a less of a security feature and more of a feature right now. Okay, that didn't make any sense, but just to explain this, currently you can only read data out of the API, via the API, sorry. So any third-party application will only be able to read data out of RapidFTR. What this allows us to do is make sure there is no third-party application unknown to us changing the data within our database for a specific instance of RapidFTR. Now, later on, when different layers of security are added for the API, so we can differentiate between the several third-party applications, then perhaps we'll have some third-party applications being able to read only, and then another set of third-party applications being able to read and change data as well. So the next bit is the next one that's a little different from the rest of the the access layers we've looked at. So when one RapidFTR server is accessing another RapidFTR server during a server-to-server sync, the way they do this is via a different layer of security. So there's a username and password provided, which is set for each server, and this is independent of the user management module that I already talked about. This is so simply because it is set differently, and there are no permissions running across for the different servers. So once you give one server access to another, it will have full access to that instance of RapidFTR. And of course, this is all done via a secure connection. So this covers the basic overview of the security for the RapidFTR application. Thanks for watching.